Hello, I'm Daniel Abrams and welcome back to Carve The Movie podcast. From here, we'll carry on with the design of the podcast, or the idea of the podcast. As I said, really, it's to do with the hurdles, the current piece, to do with the hurdles that we so far encountered and thankfully overcome. I must just say, for anyone looking at doing a project of this type, from my personal perspective, and I hope the same for the cast and the crew, because if not, I'll be throwing them out the window. No, that was a joke. From my personal perspective, the whole project has been brilliant so far and thoroughly enjoyable. We're about a third of the way through, I think, but I've been blown away by the willingness and help of people and sort of a pioneering spirit of people from all sides who've come in, and from a personal perspective, I can't wait to take on the next set of hurdles, this podcast being one of them. For this podcast, or episode of the podcast, I know it's a bit of a tongue twister there, I was going to simply talk about, I was going to quickly mention the areas that I thought I would try and cover. This will all unravel. I'm sure there's a lot more free-form jazz approach to this than there is organised, but it's definitely organised chaos. So some areas I was thinking of covering in a much more specific way is learning the lingo, getting advice, angles such as enthusiasm will get you a long way and how it will, the social media aspect to it, the rehearsals aspect to it, things such as YouTube actually being your friend, and then with the project of itself is really think small, film small, dream big, keep a realistic approach to things. So they're areas that I'll try and touch on, or at least base a podcast around for the next few that come up. But for now, I'm going to simply start with the way of getting people interested in the project that you're working on. Okay, so with the area of getting people interested, you have to remember that you've written this script that obviously you love, or there's a dream for it to be a film, however you are, but you're alone in your room. You've got your sticky tissues lying around all over the place. You haven't come outside, you probably haven't eaten, all that sort of stuff. So you now need to do everything you can to get your trousers up and tidy the room of tissues before your missus comes in. But mainly what you need to do is everything you can to get the project off the ground. And by this I mean everything. I began by asking anyone I could think of who even had a liking for films to read the script and comment on it. Harsh truth is the best truth. This sort of way of working led to the ending of the film being completely rewritten. I spoke to a young guy who does film reviews for a newspaper that I work in, and he expressed a liking and a real sort of interest in the project. Got to the end and said, I can't relate to that. Anyone who has ever written anything, or anyone who's had a career in film, God knows what they're doing listening to this, but if they have, it's a pretty safe bet to say they've had their work hacked to pieces, edited, rewritten countless times, turned around the wrong way, etc., etc., etc. Acknowledge this is a fact of life from the off. Nothing is ever going to get through, especially if you end up dealing with big film companies. But from your own project, be honest enough to show it to people. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. No one's ever the greatest writer in the world. So there I was. I spoke to Sam Cooney. I'll give you Sam's blog at the end. He's a brilliant young writer. And his initial views, as I say, came back. He said he loved the whole piece, but the ending made no real impact. So I sat down, and ironically, the ending came very quickly, the new ending, which is the one we stuck with. And thanks to his truthful comments, I'm not sure if anyone's aware of the film Blazing Saddles, but in that there's a scene where a hangman grabs a guy who's sitting in a wheelchair and says, "As you can see, boss, this one's a doozy." And that's what I came up with, I think, now, and that's what's hooked people into the film and got them working alongside me. So thanks to Sam for that. But be honest with yourself, and always get your work looked at and take the rough criticism and learn from there. It's the best way to start things, I think. From there, so I needed to get people involved. Seems a bit strange, but rather than leaning out of the bedroom window, what else are you going to do to call people? You can ring all your friends. Some of your friends wouldn't have a clue how to help you in any way. Some might. But I just went on Facebook, simply put up a question on my page and said if anybody's interested in being involved or in a short independent film project. A very humble, simple question. No, doesn't give away a lot. And from there, I had several people interested. Friends started passing things around, built up a little bit of interest. 5 or 10 people showed interest. I then sent the script off as it was, waited for some replies. If you don't get a reply, go back to, as I was saying, the previous one before, where you look at your work being analysed. Don't worry about it if no one pays it, no one replies. Someone will, and look for that. Don't get offended. If you get snubbed, you get snubbed. There you go, that's the way it works. Someone will always come to you at some point, and if you're not, go back again and start again. I got replies from people, set about meeting them face to face, because that then stops wasting time. Another thing you could put in your book, don't waste a lot of time, because we can all do that. And from there, I just secured a director of photography, or DOP. Again, when I mentioned talking about the lingo, that's one of the terms I found out. I've got a lighting guy and makeup, which is makeup special SFX, if you need to be flash about it, and that's the term that goes with that as well. I also asked a friend who works in television, and now have a fly-on-the-wall camera crew who are going to record the whole project alongside while we're building that up, and that will then run on the YouTube channel and so on. So as you can see, and that was just the initial email. That wasn't going on any other industry websites or anything along those lines to attract a cast. That was a cast. That was purely to do with the crew. So as you can see, if I've come out with 5 spots filled there, not bad from one initial question on a Facebook page. And I think from that, the lesson that surely has to be learned from that is never underestimate the skills or interests your friends or family have, and how up they might be for some new project, such as CarveTheMovie.com. Okay, that draws to a close the second edition of Carve the Movie podcast. Thanks very much for listening. To those who frequented or listened to the first edition, you know I'll be back in a moment to give you the social media addresses. But until the next version, or next time, shall we say, thanks very much for listening, and see you soon. Cheers. So for on YouTube itself, it is simply Carve the Movie. On Facebook, it's at Carve the Movie. The website address is carvethemovie.com. On Instagram, Carve the Movie. On LinkedIn, it's carve-the-movie. And on Twitter, it's carve_the. And on Instagram, it's Carve the Movie. I think I already said that, but anyway, on Twitter, it's carve_the. I don't know why the movie or Carve the Movie wasn't on there. It's a terrible address, but I apologise for that, because that was totally my fault. Anyway, there they are.